CEO, Mr. Steiner, UNDP Administrator. At the outset, Prime Minister Abe will give a chair's summary, followed by a statement by President El-Sisi. And then we will be taking your questions. Prime Minister Abe, the floor is yours.
His Excellency, President El-Sisi, thank you very much for being the co-chair. With your kind support, we have been able to successfully hold the TICAD 7, adopting the Yokohama Declaration 2019, with all the parties concerned, including the business sector. I would like to thank all of you for your kind support. Following the TICAD 6 years ago, Mayor Hayashi and the citizens of Yokohama once again welcomed all of us warmly to Yokohama. The Advancing Africa is the partner walking alongside with me. The TICAD that I have been able to preside this time, for the third time, I was able to fully feel that we have seen in reality that Africa is growing. The business participation has doubled compared to the TICAD 6. It has been more than $20 billion of investment made by Japanese businesses in the past 3 years. Africa is truly at the frontier for business, and the source of the strength is the youth in Africa, inviting the youth from Africa to learn and study in Japan, to come to like and love Japan. From the TICAD, through the Abe initiative, in the past 5 years, more than 2,500 people have graduated from the program to have the medical examination system taking roots in Africa, to have a practice of the hospitals in Rwanda, where there are many disasters happening, that the Japanese, the system of the lightning rods that have been introduced. And what has been supported for all these activities are the young leaders in Africa who have learned through the TICAD and the Abe initiative that we are joining hands and try to grow together for the future. And this is the Japanese style of support and assistance for the coming 6 years as well, of 3,000 or so, including the agriculture and extension officers. We would like to have the youth, those who would become the bridge between Japan and Africa in the future. We would like to emphasize education and training of those people. The future of Africa that African people are hoping for, to make this a reality, that is the TICAD is all for. TICAD is an open forum and framework for everyone, not just Japanese businesses, but businesses from Europe and Asia. Many companies have gathered at TICAD from all over the world. Both public and private sector strengths have been brought together to have unlimited the potential of Africa to blossom. Japan would continue to strongly lead the TICAD. The next TICAD 8 will be in 3 years. At the place in Africa where Africa is in a more advanced stage. I'm looking forward to meeting with all of you again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then President El-Sisi, please. Please.
Bismillah.
In the name of Allah, Your Excellency Mr. Shinzo Abe, the Prime Minister of Japan, distinguished guests, I would like to express my thanks for all of you, in particular His Excellency Mr. Shinzo Abe, the Prime Minister of Japan, for hosting this summit and the warm hospitality. I would like also to express my gratitude for the co-organizers of TICAD for the strenuous efforts they exerted to render this summit a success, the preparatory meetings that preceded, and the spirit of cooperation amongst the different parties that contributed to the solidarity of efforts of all stakeholders to come out with implementable outcomes to reflect the priority of our joint actions to achieve sustainable development in the African continent based on the AU Development Agenda 2063 and SDGs 2030. Ladies and gentlemen, TICAD summit reflects the high level of our strategic partnership between the EU member states and Japan. That's regarded as one of the distinguished partnerships in our contemporary world. It contributes to attain the mutual benefits between the parties of this partnership. TICAD 7 considered a great achievement for all parties as it witnessed or it provided a direct platform for dialogue between private-public sector and also focused on a number of issues of priority for the EU member states, topped by infrastructure, industry, agriculture, health, new technology applications, as well as peace and security. The EU will continue cooperation and coordination with Japan and all organizers of the TICAD in order to guarantee the implementation of the summit's outcome in order to realize the hopes and ambitions of our African continent peoples. Cognizant of that, we have to shoulder the responsibility to build up on what has been achieved from the strategic partnership between the EU member states and Japan. We have also to work together to promote this partnership to better reflect the needs of our African continent and its ownership to the developmental agenda, especially that our peoples and sons inside and outside Africa are pinning hopes on our summit to have to concretize its results to benefit thereof. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to reiterate the importance of the continuation of TICAD process to support the sustainable and inclusive development in the African continent through its 3 pillars, as well as the action plan of Yokohama Declaration. And also we have to have effective follow-up mechanisms to achieve the developmental vision based on the EU Agenda 2063 and SDGs Agenda 2030. In conclusion, I'm looking forward to the continuation of the strategic partnership between the EU member states and Japan in TICAD 8 2022 that will be held in our African continent. Thank you for you.
Thank you very much. Now we would like to open the floor for your questions. First, we will take a question from the Japanese media, and then shift to non-Japanese media and back to Japanese media in that order. If you have a question, please raise your hand. I will designate you, and you have been designated. Please step up to the nearest microphone, state your name and affiliation, and then ask your question. And also state to whom you're asking that question to before you ask the question. Now, a member of the Japanese media, please raise your hands. Yes, the person in the front row, please.
My name is Kono of NHK. My question is addressed to Prime Minister Abe. In Africa, China and various countries are competing to make ways into Africa, and China, especially with its enormous capital, is demonstrating large presence. On the other hand, some say that the loan provided by China is excessive and they're spreading concerns over the debt trap. How do you feel about such posture by China in terms of assistance, and how does Japan intend to differentiate itself from China in order to elevate its profile in Africa? China, we understand, is active in assistance to Africa, and at the same time, China is also an important actor for development of Africa. It's not just Japan or China, but several countries are contributing to the development of Africa. In providing assistance to Africa, we have to take note of the debt burden of the recipient country and take care so that the debt burden does not become excessive. Sustainable development of the recipient country is important, and thus we need to take into consideration the transparency, openness, economic viability, and debt sustainability as we provide assistance. On the occasion of the G20 summit held in June, agreement was reached on this matter, including China. All of the major countries within the G20 share this international concept with regards to such debt sustainability. And in response to this challenge, as we announced on this occasion of TICAD 7, we will be hosting trainings for public debt management and dispatching policy advisors in order to support the capacity building of debt management in African countries. We have such strength, and we have this Japaneseness. So we tap on such strength and Japaneseness in order to support efforts under Africa's ownership aiming towards steadfast economic growth, resilient society, as well as peace and stability. So our policy and assistance is growing together and working together. And based upon that guiding principle, we will continue to provide support.
Now, from Africa, members of the media from Africa, we will be taking your questions. Similarly, I will designate you. So when you have been designated, please state your name and affiliation. And we have simultaneous interpretation in multiple languages. So make sure that you would allow the interpreters to interpret your statements clearly. The person, the lady in the front with glasses, please.
I'm Nurhan Magdi, good evening. I'm a reporter in the Yom Saba journalism and Egypt Today. My question to His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Your Excellency, after TICAD 7 discussed the importance of digitalization for the development of economy in Africa and encouraging investments in addition to find a linkage, a connection for the continent and also to solve the problems of startups, how do you think we can benefit from these outcomes to accelerate transformation and how a country like Egypt that achieved great leaps in economy can share its expertise with the other African countries? Thank you. Thank you for the question, and I would like to say that we talked about the tracks of development in Africa in order to keep abreast with the advancement that we all hope to reach in the African countries. And I said that we need to develop the infrastructure, including digitalization in our countries, in our African countries. The infrastructure I'm talking about, and allow me to here widen the scope of this question. We are talking about more than 55 member countries here, so linking amongst all them in all fields, be it electricity, railways, roads, ports, or even airways. I can say that they are very humble, and so it has a direct effect on the development growth. So we have to pay great attention to this dimension. This is together with the development partners. We have to move to have a real infrastructure development, including digitalization that we are talking about, that is that actually all countries advanced. In Egypt, we achieved development, largely development, in order to to achieve a good level for digitalization, to have the required capacities, either through education infrastructure or the executive infrastructure. This is through the Egyptian companies in cooperation with the rest of, with other companies for digitalization between us and the African countries. The second point, because I said I will widen the horizon a little bit, not only we are talking about the infrastructure, but we are, as the member, as the countries of the continent, we worked through the framework agreement, the African Continental Free Trade Area. It's entered into force. And so we are on the path of continental economic integration for the continent. And here I say that this will contribute to reducing prices of commodities and will increase the competitiveness of Africa worldwide. So when we move to this direction and to implement the ACFTA, the Continental Free Trade Agreement, here we hope to work on these elements in cooperation with the partners. third point that I will conclude with is sustainable development that we all aspire. This is to absorb the capacities of the continent's youth. We're saying that the African continent has almost 65% of its population are youth. And so they have ambitions, they have hopes to find job opportunities, sustainable job opportunities. And so this is also another track to be prioritized with the partners. A very important point as well, the international finance institutions, undoubtedly speaking, there are risks in the continent, and so the credit being given to the countries is accompanied by high costs, and this is actually to add to the burden of the countries and also for the investment opportunities. And I mentioned this before in one of my speeches, but here I'm reiterating this once more. If the international finance institutes know that 1.3 billion and a bit more in the coming 10 or 20 years, if this huge market, because this difference between the market with 1.3 population with humble purchase power and another with advanced purchase power. So we have to achieve sustainable development and to have job opportunities for youth to hone their capacities and to have a very promising market in Africa to absorb the world trade. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then once again to the Japanese media. Yes. My name is Ida from Nishi Nippon newspaper. I have a question for Prime Minister Abe. I have a question about the Middle East situation, which is geographically close to Africa. On the 28th, Prime Minister Abe, you met with Foreign Minister Zarif of Iran. And ahead of that, at the press conference after the G7 summit, you said that in order to ease tensions and in order to create a situation where Iran can engage in dialogue, you shared the understanding that diplomatic efforts are needed. You said that you're prepared to do your utmost to play your role by working on this persistently. Specifically, what are you thinking? And the U.S. is calling for participation to the so-called coalition of the willing. What is the status of your consideration of the possibility of participating in that endeavor? The other day, this meeting with Foreign Minister Zarif, I attended that, that meeting was held to, Foreign Minister Kono also had that meeting with Foreign Minister Zarif. And as I said at the press conference after the G7 summit, easing tensions, towards easing of tensions, we want to have communication. So in terms of having communication, I believe that we had a very good meeting with Foreign Minister Zarif. Japan relies on this region for 80% of the oil that we use. So peace and stability of the Middle East region is directly linked to the national interest of Japan. Japan attaches importance on dialogue with Iran. I visited Iran back in June, and in order to ease tensions in the Middle East, I want to be working on this matter persistently. I would like to play my role to the utmost, including Iran. I hope to create a situation where there could be dialogue, that dialogue can be taken forward. I want to play my role in that. So I shared my thoughts with Foreign Minister Zarif 2 days ago when I had that meeting. Now there's going to be the upcoming UN General Assembly, and at that opportunity, well, every year at the UN General Assembly, Japan has a summit meeting with the President of Iran, President Rouhani of Iran. So if schedules could be coordinated at the UN General Assembly occasion, if I could have a good discussion with President Rouhani, that would be very good. And as for maritime security initiative, in order to ensure safety of navigation of Japan-affiliated vessels, we want to do everything possible. Obviously, that is expected of the Japanese government. And In order to do that, what can we do? What would be the most effective measure that we can take? We would like to be taking a comprehensive decision on that, obviously, in order to ensure safety. When I met with Foreign Minister Zarif, having dialogue and making diplomatic efforts is also very important. So we want to make a comprehensive decision, to make a comprehensive response to this issue. Thank you.
それでは再びアフリカからお見えのメディアの方に。
Next, African media. First, the lady in red on the front row, and secondly, gentleman with blue suit and red tie. First of all, the lady, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Fasikata Dusa. I'm from Ethiopia, working for a newspaper called Addis Fortune. My question is for the AU's chair, President Al-Sisi. My question is, what's common in the demographic pressure in Africa, the youth bulge and growing inequality is that women constitute the largest number, hence the most affected. So why isn't there a coherent global response to this and no credible national policies? Thank you very much.
May I ask, do you like to ask the President El-Sisi? Okay. The floor is yours, President.
Well, we spoke. Sustainable development and the role of youth in Africa, and here we are saying that there is a will and there is a common action on the EU level. And this is to exert more efforts toward the youth in Africa and to find job opportunities and also to involve them. Here, it's very important to say that our forum, youth forum in Egypt, this is a global forum, an African forum as well, being hosted by Egypt, and it's held every 2 years. In this forum, we invite youth from Africa, we invite youth from all of the African countries so that to have an opportunity for dialogue and to discuss and talk with them about the issues of their concern. But I want to speak about the institutional work and the institutional efforts being carried out by the African Union member states. The heads of states are very much keen on developing youth and to have regulations to further contribute to train and qualify young people for the future. In relation to women, I will say that we pay great attention. I'm not speaking about policies, but I'm speaking about regulations for women and the participation in the African community at large. And in Egypt, the woman role is very much optimized, and this is within the framework of a real understanding for the importance of women's role in Africa and in our region. What I want to say also is that these procedures are not of a short term in their nature. It takes a long time. These procedures take a long time until they yield the results in the African countries. So we will not achieve this very quickly as we can imagine. Thank you.
As a final question.
Je suis Félix Bonny.
My name is Félix Bonny from Côte d'Ivoire. My question is for Prime Minister Abe. Prime Minister, what is special about what Japan brings to Africa in contrast with other partners such as the United States, the European Union, and in particular China that was mentioned earlier on? Thank you.
Japan, when we have launched the 1993, the TICAD, consistently we have been respecting the ownership of Africa, and we have provided assistance of human-centered development assistance. Strength of a nation derives from its people. This concept is based upon the development model of Japan. There has been an increase of the population of more than 14%, and especially the young population is increasing. This is something that we are envious of. Now, I have mentioned already, the strength of a nation rests with the people. From 2013, we have started Abe Initiative, and more than 1,200 the persons that have been trained through master's course in Japan, and they have worked as interns at the Japanese companies. And Japanese companies, in their local or the African companies' in-house training, and they have been contributing to the growth of Africa, and they would continue to do so to assist Africa. And those the young people who have inculcated those technology and looking into the future, that would hold the key for the further development of Africa. At the G20 the summit, I believe I have been given appreciation from the leaders of Africa, and also for the social welfare. We are trying to respect the ownership of Africa. The UHC, the Japanese brand type of the health coverage, that has been contributing to Africa. In the health sector as well, steadfastly in Africa, UHC has been adopted in Kenya and Senegal. The poor people are increasingly participating in the health insurance as a scheme. And we would like to support the further growth of Africa through all these endeavors. And earlier, there has been a question from the Ethiopian journalist, what may be the policy of the women to President El-Sisi? And I would also like to speak of my own policy of trying to encourage the women. So we agree on this respect, not in Africa, but in the whole of the world, that the women are not given opportunity for education. That is a reality.
We have to change this situation. And I share this notion with President El-Sisi, I'm sure. In June, we held the G20 Osaka Summit, and 12 years of minimal education to all women should be given as a right to all women. We confirmed that principle amongst our G20 colleagues. And in this context, we wish to enhance our cooperation with African countries and lead such initiative. In the 3 years to 2020, at least 4 million women will be offered opportunities for education up to the 3 years up to 2020. So ultimately, we hope that all women are granted the right to education to exercise leadership.
Thank you very much. Time is now up, and therefore we would like to bring to a close this joint press conference. The speakers on the platform will be leaving the room. The members of the media are kindly asked to stay in your seats.